Good morning, Minister. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. In truth, I'm not fully sure why my masters have seen fit to promote me when there are others that are far more deserving. If either yourself or your counterpart had a hand in this, then please accept my gratitude. I've been asked to come before you today to provide a briefing which pertains to an incident that took place several weeks ago in the Southern Ocean involving a number of Royal Navy vessels. You will recall from previous briefings I have offered that there was credible intelligence the German military were seeking to establish some form of foothold in the continent of Antarctica. It was common knowledge that after their expedition there 3 years ago, certain elements within the German High Command had been quite vocal in their desire to establish a permanent outpost there. Confidential information was then forwarded to us by operatives in and around the German Navy's infrastructure. This seemed to indicate that a further expedition was indeed being planned. In November, a resistance source operating in the French port of La Rochelle passed word that a ship had put to sea, destined for the southern continent. That vessel, although apparently travelling under a number of different flags and identities, was believed to be a German surface raider with the name Eisbar. In addition to her existing crew and weapons, there was further evidence that she was carrying a party of men drawn from one of the Germans' mountain infantry regiments. Although there was no tangible evidence to confirm the exact terms of reference for said mission, it may well have been in order to establish a whaling station, a meteorological outpost, or potentially a resupply point for further German surface raiders. Originally, it was proposed by the Admiralty to revisit this matter later in the year, once the horrendous weather conditions of the coming Antarctic winter had passed. At that time, it was speculated that perhaps a small force may be dispatched to investigate these enemy actions further. However, that decision was then revisited when it was confirmed in late January the Eisbar had been encountered and sunk by HMS Ellis, whilst apparently engaged on her return journey back to France. During subsequent interviews with survivors from the ship, it became clear that the German mission had been subject to a quite ghastly misfortune, which had caused the raider and her crew to depart in a hurry, leaving a small number of her passengers behind in the process. As a result of this information, a destroyer named HMS Karma was diverted to the Southern Ocean. Her orders were to ascertain the status of the Kriegsmarine installation and also to evacuate any persons still there and alive prior to the onset of winter. From signals we've since received from the captain of HMS Karma, which is currently on its way home, it appears the enemy expedition was subject to a horrific and quite inexplicable event. From information gleaned from the German survivors, the destroyer's crew were able to successfully locate the facility, which was constructed in an area known as Queen Maud Land. This consisted of a series of small buildings constructed using timber and metal panelling, which now lay half destroyed and contain the mutilated remains of a number of the German Alpine soldiers. 2 survivors were located, quite close to death. It's not yet clear to us how these men managed to survive for as long as they did. It's equally unclear if the story they have since told us holds any credence. I'm informed that part of the German mission involved drilling down through the ice sheet in the immediate vicinity of their base. Apparently, not long after their arrival, the mountain troops seem to have unexpectedly stumbled across an underground lake, which they then went on to obtain samples from. Unfortunately for the Germans, it's now clear these samples contain some form of living entity, which on contact with the exposed skin of one of the German soldiers began to feed off him and swell and grow into a much larger creature. Now, as you're aware from our previous interaction, sir, I am not a medical man, but our scientific advisors inform me that from the description I have passed to them, this living mass moved and behaved in a manner similar to some form of oversized amoeba. It went on to attach itself to and somehow drain the living tissue from any life form it then encountered, in the process increasing its own mass. Efforts by the German soldiers to drive off this entity with their weapons were initially unsuccessful, their gunfire having no apparent effect. Further attempts using fire and explosives proved equally ineffective, only serving to sever the creature into two smaller versions, which then acted independently, increasing in size and sadly claiming the lives of yet more German soldiers. Eventually, it was only with desperate fire from the surface raiders' 3-inch guns, as it hurriedly departed, that the creatures were successfully incinerated. Sadly, in their haste to leave, the raiders' crew steadfastly refused to return for the soldiers they had left on the ice cap, condemning a number of those men to death in the process. You will see, sir, that Lieutenant Commander Shepherd has now joined us at the rear of the room. Of late, he has been tasked with heading up a new unit within the Navy, investigating inexplicable maritime occurrences. He's been asked to join us today to share his observations on a proposed mission, the goal of which will be to confirm or deny the existence of these alleged Antarctic creatures. I would suggest that once he has finished with you, sir, we break for lunch. There is another matter I wish to discuss with you of equal importance. This involves a series of unidentified corpses that have recently been discovered in the location and vicinity of some of our more isolated air bases. Lieutenant Commander Shepherd, if you would please.